Imagine holding absolute power over a nation of 90 million people for over 3 decades, controlling its military, its courts, its media, its entire direction as a nation. No election could remove you. No parliament could overrule you. You stood at the very top of a system built around your authority. That was Ali Khamenei. And then, on February 28th, 2026, it all ended. In a single morning, the man who had defined Iran for 36 years was gone. But to truly understand what happened, you have to go all the way back to the beginning, because this is not just a story about power. It's a story about a boy from a modest home in northeastern Iran who spent his entire life being shaped and reshaping one of the most consequential countries on earth. Ali Khamenei was born on April 19, 1939 in Mashhad, a holy city in northeastern Iran. If you've never heard of Mashhad, think of it as the spiritual heartbeat of Shia Islam in Iran. Millions of pilgrims visit it every year. It's a city deeply rooted in religious identity, and that identity would shape Khamenei from his very first breath. His father, Sayyid Javad Khamenei, was an Islamic scholar, a humble man who raised 8 children on very little. From the age of 4, young Ali was already learning the Quran, not as a hobby, as a way of life. By the time he was a teenager, he had enrolled in a religious seminary in Mashhad, studying logic, philosophy, and Islamic law. His mother was known as an avid reader who loved literature and poetry, and she passed that love directly to her son. Khamenei would go on to write poetry himself and translate literature into Persian. This was a deeply intellectual young man. In 1958, he moved to Qom, the center of Iran's theological community, where he came under the influence of a cleric who would change his life forever, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini. Now here's where things get intense. Iran in the 1960s was ruled by Shah Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, a secular monarch with close ties to the United States. The Shah was modernizing Iran rapidly, but many clerics and religious students saw Western influence as a direct threat to Iran's cultural and religious identity. And Khamenei, now in his early 20s, made his choice. He joined Khomeini's opposition movement. What followed were years of relentless resistance and relentless punishment. He was arrested 6 times by Savak, the Shah's intelligence service. He was imprisoned and exiled. Each time they released him, he came back more determined. By the early 1970s, he was holding Quranic classes in Mashhad that attracted thousands of students. His lectures were secretly copied and distributed across the country. When Savak raided his home, they confiscated everything, but he never stopped. Then came 1979, the Iranian Revolution. The Shah fell. Khomeini returned from exile, and Khamenei, who had spent over 16 years imprisoned and persecuted for his beliefs, was right there at the center of it all. He was appointed to the Revolutionary Council. He served as Deputy Minister of Defense. He was named Khomeini's personal representative on the Supreme Defense Council. But then on June 27, 1981, something happened that would permanently mark him, physically and psychologically. A bomb went off at the Abu Dhar Mosque in Tehran where Khamenei was speaking. The explosion seriously injured him. His right hand was permanently damaged. He never fully regained use of it. That attack only deepened his commitment, and just months later, in October 1981, he was elected President of Iran, a position he'd hold for 2 full terms. Through the Iran-Iraq war that lasted 8 years and claimed hundreds of thousands of lives. Now here's what most people don't know. Khamenei was never supposed to become supreme leader. When Ayatollah Khomeini died in June 1989, the question of succession was deeply uncertain. Khamenei didn't have the highest clerical rank. Many figures outranked him in traditional religious scholarship. But Khomeini had quietly endorsed him, and when the assembly of experts voted, Khamenei emerged as the choice. He stepped into a role that no one, including himself, fully expected him to hold. And then he held it for 36 years. As supreme leader, Khamenei held authority over the military, the judiciary, foreign policy, and state media. Presidents came and went. Political factions rose and fell. But through all of it, Khamenei remained the central figure in Iran's power structure. He guided Iran through years of Western sanctions over its nuclear program. He approved the 2015 nuclear deal, the JCPOA, while maintaining a cautious stance toward Western intentions. When Donald Trump withdrew the US from that deal in 2018, it reinforced Khamenei's long-held skepticism toward Washington. In 2009, mass protests broke out across Iran following a disputed presidential election. The government responded with force and the movement was suppressed. In 2022, the death of Mahsa Amini in police custody sparked nationwide demonstrations, some of the largest in Iran's modern history. Young Iranians, women, students, and workers took to the streets demanding change. The government once again responded with a security crackdown. Through all of it, Khamenei remained at the center of power. But the social tensions within Iran were undeniable and growing. On the morning of February 28, 2026, a targeted military strike hit Khamenei's compound in Tehran. Iranian state media confirmed his death within hours. The government announced 40 days of national mourning. Reactions across Iran and the world varied widely: grief, shock, uncertainty, and for some, relief. The man who had led Iran for 36 years, who had outlasted dozens of world leaders, who had survived imprisonment, injury, sanctions, and years of internal unrest, was gone. So what do we make of Ali Khamenei? He was a man of remarkable complexity, a scholar who wielded political power, a revolutionary who became the cornerstone of the very institution he once fought to build. A leader who inspired deep loyalty in some and deep frustration in others. He shaped Iran's direction for an entire generation, its foreign policy, its regional relationships, its nuclear ambitions, and its model of governance. Whether you see him as a defender of Iranian sovereignty or as a leader whose policies came at a high cost to his own people, one thing is certain: Ali Khamenei was one of the most consequential figures of the modern era. And on February 28, 2026, his story came to an end.